Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last Thursday of the month Fiction Book Club. And we're still working on A. American's Going Home series, his Survivalist series. Tonight's going to be book number 8, Home Invasion. And he is up to book number 16, so we will see what will happen there. Let me check on something. I just want to verify something here real quick. Number one, as of right now, Nutrient Survival has a payday prep deal for this weekend, and it's 20% off all cereal products. So basically, oatmeal and things like that. 20% off, and the code is payday, Payday. I don't get anything from that. So, just to let you know, you can get 20% off this weekend with the code word payday. So now for the good news. I did get a confirmation from Franklin Horton. And so let me make sure that I'm going to give you the right date here. We are looking at the 24th of July at 7 p.m. Central. So 24 July at 7 Central, Franklin Horton. He's got several series. Oh my gosh, let me tell you, I can't tell you how excited I am. I've read 3 of his books. I've ordered 3 more. They should be here tomorrow. It's taken me a total of 7 days to read 3 of his books. Just unbelievable. I wanted to read Mad Mick first, but I found out he had a website, and so I got into his website, and it said, don't read Mad Mick first. Read Blocker 9 and then Saving Grace, because Mad Mick, the character, gets introduced in book 2, which is Saving Grace. So I read Blocker 9, then I read Saving Grace. So I said, okay, I want to get a couple more of your books under my belt so I can really ask you some good questions. And so I'm ordering 3 more. Going to get several of his series, and so I just want to read to you kind of like what his series look like. He sent me an email. He says, Locker 9 and Borrowed World are my more prepper series. Mad Mick is more focused on action and adventure. The thing about Locker 9 that was unique at the time was the idea of setting up a detailed preparedness plan for a kid away from home in college and using a storage locker for the supplies, basically the bug out kit. Borrowed World is a classic get home story like what Chris wrote. Now, Chris is basically this guy, a American. And so evidently, Franklin and Chris are pretty good friends, and they communicate together quite well. Mine was written from the perspective of someone who came from a backpacking background, and Chris's came from a more military background. A lot of people have found that to be reliable. Borrowed World was also one of the first to use a written survival plan that the man left in the gun safe for his wife in case he wasn't home. So those kinds of plans are pretty much more common now. I don't think they are, Franklin. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be very, very good for us. Oh gosh, all kinds of new stuff came in I need to get rid of. All kinds of new stuff may have come in, but a lot of us still need the basics. So that's kind of where we are. Let me check into who all's here, and then we can get started on the book. Gosh, this book was kind of exciting. Wow, look at all the comments. Unbelievable. Okay, so I know Mitch J was here first, and she's so I want to go back up here. I want to make sure everybody knows she just ordered a Baofeng 10-watt walkie-talkie. She's looking at getting 12 to 15 miles out of it, but it has an advertised 25-mile range. She's way ahead of me, so I've asked her to share that as she goes along. She needs the programming for beginners for the Baofeng 5UV, UV5, whatever. So programming it with Chirp. And so I said, yeah, she's way ahead of me. Let's make sure that she shares. Little Lone Prepper showed up. Pat Butler is here. Jean Sin, welcome. And Diana too, welcome. And let me see here. Barrett Foley. That's a new name. Welcome. Please hit the subscribe and the like button if you would, please. Holly Irvin is here. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. gosh, you guys, such great names. Unbelievable. Thank you so much for being here. I'm coming down with bronchitis or an upper respiratory infection. I thought that by getting, what do you call it, allergy shots, that I would get the number of upper respiratory infections taken down, and it has done a really good job. I haven't had one since about December, so now I'm coming down with an upper respiratory infection. And if I cough tonight, please, please, please forgive me. Camper Van Clark, howdy, welcome. Let me see who else here. Vitra. That almost sounds Ruski, at least Slavic. Okay, so that's where we are. Okay, let's get into this phenomenal book. Gosh, what a series. Morgan has just become one of those heroes that you just say, gosh, this guy can do anything and everything. And once again, I've got my tabs. I've got my 5x8 card with my notes. I've got all kinds of good things going on here. So, it kind of starts off that we're getting more into the rebuilding phase that Umatilla and the other small burgs or towns around his area are becoming a little bit more evolved. The SHTF event is now probably about 6 months to a year old. We're further along in the timeline. We're developing. We're trying to redevelop. We're kind of back into the area now where we're rebuilding society. So a couple things are happening. Number one, the natural gas is coming through the pipes, so they're getting the power plant back up. So even though they get the power plant back up, we still need linemen to go out there and reconnect the lines and the transformers and everything else. So that's going to be one thing. And let me tell you, I worked in the power distribution industry, and those linemen, we don't pay them enough. We don't give them enough attention. Those guys are just phenomenal, especially in Florida. They're out there during high winds trying to get the electricity restored to you. Here in Texas, we normally need them during ice storms and snowstorms, which happen. And hello, ABC Patriot and Teresa Buchanan, welcome. And hello, Tofu, welcome. East Coast Railroad, that's a new one too. Welcome. So, but anyhow, here in Texas, then the weight of the ice and everything on the line snaps the line. We have to go out and recombine the line. And so typically it's going to be a 7,200 volt line. They're up there 25, 30 feet in the air, freezing conditions. And, the electricity is still flowing, and it's a live wire. And it's just terrible. But, they go out there, they do it. So one of the things I did, I was the HR director. So one of the things I did when we had a situation like that was I had my own truck that they gave me, and we'd go back and we would fix coffee and hot cocoa and hot soup and put it in thermoses, and then take those out to the linemen wherever they were and try to keep them warmed up. But gosh, I mean, those guys, unbelievable what they go through for everybody. Sean Penrod, welcome. Northern Illinois. And let me see. Yeah, mine is cyclical. I was getting it 3-4 times a year. I think it's because of my COPD as a result of smoking all those years. The best way to quit, well, after I left the Heart of Texas Electric Co-op, and from there I went and took over as the HR director for the homeless shelter, the third largest homeless shelter, the one in Austin. It's called the ARCH, ARCH, the Austin Resource Center for the Homeless. And I caught MRSA pneumonia there. So with MRSA pneumonia, I was put in ICU for a couple of weeks, and that's how I quit smoking. Was, when you're in ICU under an oxygen tent, or under with oxygen all the way, and pressurized inhalations and stuff like that, then you have a tendency to quit smoking. And I really I keep a pack of stale cigarettes that were in my car when I was hospitalized. And so these cigarettes are now probably 6 years old. I keep them in the glove compartment of my pickup because that car got totaled from the hailstorm, and I bought a Toyota pickup with it. And so I keep it in the glove compartment of the pickup just to remind me, that's what I used to do. That's old, that's stale, that's not current. So anyhow, that's where we are. Okay, so we're trying to rebuild society based off of what's going on. As we're rebuilding and recouping from everything. So a couple of things are happening. Number one of the things that I never thought of was how are we going to get weather information? And so they do find a guy who has a ham radio setup, and the ham setup that he has allows him to download photos from a weather satellite. And so that's how they're finding out that there is a hurricane approaching the area where they are, and able to start making preparations for that. So this ham radio operator is kind of keeping them informed by this satellite that comes over. I believe it's twice a day, but I may have that wrong. And so he's kind of keeping them informed of the weather patterns and everything else. As it turns out, Morgan's been doing all of the both police work. There's a TV show called Law and Order. And they separate, so it goes through the whole process. They have the detectives do the arresting, and then they have the DA doing the prosecuting. So two different sides of the same story. Well, here with Morgan right now, hello Shenanigans, welcome. David Crane, welcome to you too. So now, right now, Morgan as the, is it Morgan? Am I getting my characters right? Okay. I'm afraid I might have Morgan confused with, no, it is Wyatt. Wyatt is in Steve Smith's books, and Morgan is in A American's books. Okay, there we go. So Morgan is playing sheriff and judge, and he doesn't like that. He needs to have a little bit more of a civil restructuring of the law and order and process and everything else. So it turns out that he appoints, with the National Guard's approval, this guy that has a ham radio as the new judge. So they've got some guys that they've got locked up in jail, and what they're doing is they're kind of coming up with this credo on, if you don't have a prison system and you don't have penal codes and lawyers and everything else, how do you effectuate the punishment of crimes from minor to major? So we know the major is just they're going to kind of take care of them. So they come up with kind of this tier system of punishments. We don't see how the crimes are fitting into them yet. That's going to be yet developed, I think, over the course of the books. But we do see the tiers of the punishments. So the bottom punishment basically is public shaming. The old A for adulteress on the forehead, back in the Puritan days. You've got, just kind of shackling them and people throwing tomatoes at them and stuff like that, and making fun of them in public and letting people know what they did. That's that public shaming portion of it. Then the one up from that is they've determined that there's not enough groceries coming in to feed all the people. So they need to get more groceries. So they've got Clyde and Thad are kind of building this farm and planting everything. And so, I'm sorry, Cecil. So Cecil and Thad are getting this farm going, but they need farm hands to work it, to weed it, to take care of the plants. So what they're doing is they're basically using people who have infractions of the law in the community, and they're putting them on a chain gang and using them basically to augment the citizens who are working the farms. So the second form of punishment, the next one up from public shaming, is a chain gang. Now, on this chain gang, they have one guy who he got drunk and murdered his girlfriend. And so we all know that the punishment for that is probably going to be, a sentence of a little bit more severe than life sentence, and so the only question is when. So kind of the decision is made. We're going to make them on the chain gang until we don't need them anymore, and then we'll get rid of them, and then you'll try them and execute them. So that's he's in the middle of these guys. Now the other portion of it is. They've also got garden hose lashes. which is a little bit more severe than the chain gang. And they're using garden hoses and just, kind of think of the sailors on the British ships back in the 17th and 1800s where they got, cat o' nine tails and they got 24 lashes. Billy Budd by Herman Melville. That's a good book, and it talks about how Billy Budd got the lashes and a couple other guys got the lashes. And that was quite a thing. But what they're using here is they're using a rubber hose because it doesn't fray the skin like lashing would do. Let me see. Little Lone Pepper says that she's finished 2 of the books and got the 3 others to come in. So Little Lone Pepper, I think you won the Steve Smith Stonemont series, right? Didn't you get the reversion? And I forget what book 2 is, which is a different series than what we're doing here tonight. But I'm glad that you're into it because, gosh, that's a great series. Mitch J says she's enjoyed the little page markers and highlighted passages. Yeah, I'm sorry that I kind of get into my books. So ABC Patriot, you and my wife could become best friends very easily. I think she can tell me the year that it came out and the synopsis of every Law and Order that has ever existed, Special Victims Unit, you name the Law and Order, and she can tell you basically who the stars are, what happened to the stars, when it was filmed, and everything else. And that's her series is Law and Order. As a matter of fact, I was kind of like getting this all set up this evening because my favorite show, The Blacklist, comes on just before we went live. So I missed the last 10 minutes of it, but this is the last season. I think we got 2 more episodes left, and then The Blacklist is over. But let me see here. Okay, and look at there's another one, Vivian. Hello, Vivian from St. Louis. Welcome. Okay, so that then we've got the garden hose lashes, and then after that we're talking about capital punishment. So Sarge, what they're doing is they're trading things, and so they have this one family, and I forget the name, I didn't write it down. It's a couple, and they have a greenhouse, and they're growing all kinds of stuff. So they're giving away vegetables, especially tomatoes, like you would not believe. And they also have honeybees, and so they're giving away honey and things like that, and just because they have so much. And then they're taking Morgan and crew are taking that to town and distributing that amongst the people to keep them well fed and everything else. The honeycombs get given to his daughters as candy kind of things. But then as they acquire meat and other things, dairy and stuff like that, then they're going back and giving it to them. So it's kind of a barter system, but it's an honor barter system because it's just give in anticipation that if you get something extra, you're going to give it back to me. So it's not a this for that. It's more I'm giving to you. I'm paying forward some good things, and we're hoping that at some point you can pay it back. Type of arrangement. So if you'll remember, I think it was back in book 4 or book 5, there was an explosion in town, and Morgan's daughter, Leanne, was severely injured as a result of the explosion. She had shrapnel to the face and majority all over her body, and she was in bad condition there for quite a while. The medical team from the National Guard Armory, it was from the medical team that was flown in by the general from SOCOM, was able to basically stitch her up, put her back together, and everything. She's just not going to be a beauty queen. And so that happened. And so now we've got this guy that Morgan's calling Porky, and Porky comes into town, and he's one of those shysters, if you know what I mean, one of those big guys. And I in my mind, I see a big guy in a white coat with a bow tie or a bolo tie, one or the other, string tie, and then he's got one of those white straw hats that's kind of in Russian it's a furashka, but I can't think of what it's called. A fedora. So he's got this white straw fedora, and he just that shaky looking character. That's how I envision this guy looking, and he's got his entourage around him. And Of course, he's speaking like a lawyer. He wants to be the judge and everything else. And Morgan says, no, you're too shaky. There's no way on earth I would ever make you the judge. He kind of belittles the guy and calls him Porky. So that's what we'll call him here too. And so Porky comes back to town, and he calls Morgan over and wants Morgan to talk to him, and they get into a scuffle. And Porky, at the end of the book this evening, at the end of book 8, Morgan has been shot in the side, basically, and with a small caliber pistol, a 32, and but he does kill Porky, But anyhow, so that's kind of where that is. We've also got Sarge and his relentless pursuit of coffee. So, of course, we know you can take chicory, and that's discussed in the book, is how you take chicory and turn it into a coffee. Not quite as good as Arabica or some of the others. My favorite coffee bean, is Harar from Ethiopia, and that's considered to be the oldest living coffee bean. But so, the Ethiopian Harar is just phenomenal bean. And so they're trying to find out how can they keep Sarge in coffee. So one of the things one of the notes I made was that if you take the hickory tree and you dig down and you get the roots, and then what you want to do is you want to cut those roots down into very small chips of, so you're going to basically dice it up, for lack of a better word, get the small chips. Then you're going to put that in water. You're going to boil that, and then that becomes your coffee substitute. Then that would be boiled hickory chips as a substitute for coffee. So that's kind of where that is. Oh, wow. David Crane says he's been listening to this series on Audible while he's working around the farm. Great idea. Great idea. No. The reason I have this up is because this, if I turn around, I'm facing due west, and that's the setting sun. And even with the blinds turned up, I've got the setting sun coming in. And so that kind of the camera and the lights here in the dining room, everything gets kind of washed out. So if I don't have something covering it, and that's the heaviest flag I have in the house. If you look at a lot of my older videos, I had to do the same thing during the summertime. I've got the Knights Templar flag. I've got an Appeal to Heaven. I've got the Gadsden flag, and Don't Step on Me, Don't Tread on Me. What else do I have? Got the U.S. Army flag. Gosh, I got a couple flags. I got the Texas flag. So, I'll put those up. I'll put up different flags and just block out the sun as it sets, so that you can see me and not just solid glare from the setting sun. This kind of matches. I guess I could have this up. I probably should have one made for the Stonemont series. I did order a Stonemont T-shirt, and that Stonemont T-shirt's going to be, the one that has this tree with Stonemont on it. So that should be coming in soon. Today I'm wearing my Nutrient Survival T-shirt. Earlier today I was wearing, what was I? Oh, it was the air show in one of the small towns had the Confederate Air Force in. So I had a Confederate Air Force show. It has a DC-3 and an A-10 on it. And then before that, I was wearing my St. Michael shirt, and I got stopped at oh, no, I know what it was. Some guy came by the door wanting to sell me solar panels, and I answered the door. He says, "Is that a St. Michael shirt?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "You like my St. Michael tattoo?" And so we started talking, and but anyhow, so I had my St. Michael shirt on before that. Tomorrow I'll probably have a black T-shirt on, and it's my on the back. Somebody stopped me at the grocery store and asked me if they could take a picture of it, but it's kind of in gold on black, and which are the Army colors, and it says Satan saw me on my knees and thought he'd won until I said amen. And so people have asked if they could take a picture of that. Now I've got a new one being made right now. So my friend Don Stewart, he owns Digi-Thread Art. It's a great little company. He does all kinds of things, engraving and T-shirts and everything else. And so he's making me a new one. And so this new one is going to be a gray shirt with, I forget what color I asked him to make the lettering, but it says, "In this world of self-identification, I declare myself a wireless hole puncher." And then it's got the silhouette of an M1911. So we're going to call those wireless hole punchers from now on instead of. The first book in this series is The Reversion, Little Lone Prepper. No, I'm sorry, it's not. The Reversion is the first book in the Stone Month series. Let me get up here. So let me look at A American. I think the very first book is Going Home. Book 7. Yeah, book one of 11. Going Home is his first book. So that's and that's, I guess, why the series is called the Going Home Survivalist series. But anyhow, so let's get into some of these tabs and oh gosh, there's one other one. They get rid of some Spetsnaz, or at least some Russian equivalent Pathfinders, and they're messing around the market, and they're trading with 1/4 ounce Krugerrands. And so that kind of tips them off. They finally find them. They kill 2 of them, and then they go after the other 2, and they get them. And they know that Florida has been invaded by the Russians and the Cubans. California, they've got the Chinese Navy coming towards it. So over the ham radio system, they find out that the Navy has told China, back off. And then they find out that there have been some nukes launched on the West Coast, and California has experienced some nuclear attacks. Simultaneous with that, you've got the Soviets, the Russians, and the Cubans landing in southern Florida, and they're moving up the peninsula. So they decide to send out a scouting party from the National Guard. So they've got 3 MRAPs. They got the MRAPs when they took out the DHS camp, book 6. And so they took out the DHS camp, got the MRAPs. So they're going to send one MRAP, has basically Sarge's crew in it. The the third MRAP, the last one in the group, it kind of has Dalton and the other 3 or 4 National Guard people who went over to Morgan and his crew. Then the middle MRAP is full of National Guardsmen. So they go down, they're tooling down the freeway, and to see if they can find any of the Russians and the Cubans. And all of a sudden they encounter what in the book is described as a BMP and a BTR. Now, BMP is a Russian abbreviation. It stands for Boyovaya Machina Pechota, which means infantry fighting vehicle. And then BTR is Bronya Transporter, and that is an armored personnel carrier. So the Bronya Transporter, that's probably in this case is going to be a BTR 60 or a BTR 70 is the newer one. But it's basically a wheeled vehicle. And then, of course, the BMTP is basically the same thing as our M2 Bradley. It's a squatter vehicle. Used to be 76 millimeter gun. Now it has a 100 millimeter gun. They've upgraded it with some AT-12s and things like that. But, I have a feeling that probably would more likely be a BMD, a Boyovaya Machina Desantnaya, which means an airborne infantry fighting vehicle, airborne fighting vehicle. But, Chris hangs out with special forces. He has his stuff wired as far as knowing military terminology, equipment, threats. I mean, he's got this down solid. So I'm going to take his word for it that it's a BMP and not a BMD, and the BTR. So you're tooling up the road. You got these 3 MRAPs, and all of a sudden, slam on the brakes, because we've got 2 vehicles capable of destroying all 3 MRAPs. So they do a reverse. They turn around and start coming back. So now Sarge and his crew are in the lead as they're going back, because they were in the back going forward, and now they're in the lead going back. Of course, the National Guard are still in the middle. Dalton and the other ones are in the back MRAP. They see a muzzle flash. And so Dalton says, swerve, because you want to start swerving, because if it's a gun firing, then you can swerve and possibly get out of the impact of the gun before it hits. And so his vehicle swerves, and what they do is they just clear a path, and that shell goes right into the MRAP for the National Guard, wipes them out, just totally takes out the MRAP. And so as they're kind of trying to get around it, they're slowly going around. One of the soldiers come out. He's on fire, 100% consumed by flames. And everybody's arguing, stop, we got to give him first aid, stop, we got to pick him, and everything else. And Dalton turns around and shoots him. And so they says, he's dead, let's go. And so they move on. And of course, Dalton catches a lot of grief over that, because shooting your own is not considered kosher. And so here this poor guy was suffering from obviously what's going to be third-degree burns for the rest of his life. And even with the best medical care on earth, we have Brooke Army Medical Center, BAMC, down here in San Antonio. And that is the premier burn center in the world for treating burns. And as a matter of fact, when I do my exercises on Monday and Wednesday, one of the guys that exercises with me is a graduate of the very first SEAL class. And he was involved in a motorcycle accident and got medically discharged from the Navy, but he had third-degree burns over half of his body. And so he still has those scars from that. He'll never outlive that. But that was with the finest medical care there is. You're in a situation where there is no fine medical care. They aren't going to be able to graft skin. They aren't going to be able to do a lot of the things that they do at BAMC right now for soldiers who are severe burns coming back from combat. So, we have to ask the moral question, are we going to let him die a long, painful death as a result of third-degree burns and the ensuing dehydration and infection, or are we going to, let him go? And so, shenanigans, what a great thing. We say it too. And as a matter of fact, I'm trying to figure out a way to get it onto a t-shirt, but the St. Michael prayer is just a little bit long to fit onto the back of a t-shirt. So, but anyhow, no, that's one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, I have a small, I do my St. Michael thing when I go to bed. On my cell phone, when I go to church, so at 9 o'clock mass, or 9:30 mass, if you go early at 9 o'clock, we have the rosary. And then we do the rosary from 9 to 9:25. And then after 9:25, between 9:25 and 9:30, when mass starts, I do the St. Where'd we go? There it is. I do the St. Michael app. So you can do the St. Michael chaplet, and I do that in about 7 minutes at church. So I don't know if you're in the St. Michael chaplet, but it's nine different groups of 3. So anyhow, so that's kind of where we are with that. Let me get these tab pages and see where we are. So that's one of those decisions you're going to have to make, and I've told you before, in CERT, when the civilian emergency response team, one of the things that they teach us is, if you put a tourniquet on somebody that's bleeding, you've got to stay with that person, but who's going to remove that tourniquet? And then the other question is, let's say you're getting onto a bus and the first person you see is the bus driver, and you put the tourniquet on him, you're denying care to 33 other people in a 34 passenger bus. So, bypass that one you need to put the tourniquet on, check out the others, and save those that are salvageable before you go back and take care of the one that may not be salvageable. That's kind of the same thing in this combat type situation, where you want to make sure that you understand who can be taken care of and who can't. And that's going to be a very, very difficult moral dilemma for everybody. Okay, going home. Great. You're that's the one, David. You are fantastic. Uh, yeah, so it's just the St. Michael app, and it'll help you do the St. Michael Chaplet. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so what has happened is they have uh, one of the only deer in the entire state of Florida was being chased by a pack of wild dogs. And they're driving down the road, and the deer basically commits suicide by jumping in front of the Suburban that they're driving. And so, of course, they pick it up, they put everything together, and they decide that they're going to have a picnic. They're going to have a swimming day. So they're going to, uh, or they, or is it a? Yeah, I think this is a deer. It might be a pig that Thad has raised. But they're going to have a barbecue, and they're going to have a swimming day. And so while they're barbecuing, this family with distended bellies and everything else comes up, and they said they could smell the food. And so here they are. Of course, Morgan family and associates don't have that much to eat, but they obviously have more than this family does. And so one of the kids just comes up and drops his drawers and takes a poop right there in the middle of the discussion, and pulls his drawers back up and then picks his teeth. And they realize how destitute these people are. And so they say, you know what, you can just have all the food here. We're leaving. We're leaving the food with you. And so then the question becomes one of, do we take them to town? Do we take them to get them medical care or whatever? And so Doc says, wait a minute, I went over and checked out that kid's poop, and there are all kinds of intestinal worms and lice in the poop, and we just don't have the capability to take care of that kind of infestation. So if one of them's infected, they're all infected. And so that's what they're talking about here. And so they're saying, well, that's just awful, Kay says. We should do something. And Sarge pats her on the hand and says, what could we do? They probably aren't going to come into town anyway. They won't make it that long. We offered to bring the doc out to them, and they said no. So hard as it is to say, we can't save everyone. People are going to die. I think that's one of those things we just have to accept as well, that that's just going to be the way it is. Regardless of how little we can do, we can't save everybody. We've got to take care of we got to take care of ourselves, and we got to take care of those around us. And then have compassion, like they did, giving the meat to those people. Have compassion for the people that you can't help that much. Help them to the extent that you can, but realize, don't invest too much in them, because you aren't going to be able to save them. And that's a religious call too, because remember, as far as shenanigans and I are concerned, human life is sacrosanct, and so we don't even believe in the death sentence. And so taking a life is doing something to one of God's creatures. And now, I personally, the church advocates that even the capital punishment is wrong. I say no. There are times when capital punishment is right, and I also believe that in wartime, taking care for your country, defending yourself against an armed intruder. I think there are exceptions when it's okay to take life, but the church officially says no. Taking a life is wrong, and so let me see here. Yes, triaging is a skill, and it's one that you have to be very, very hard and very solid in what you're doing and know what you're doing. Yes, you do put the tourniquet. You do put the time either on the tourniquet or on their forehead. You can put a T in the time on their forehead if you have that. But in the civilian world, in CERT, anytime you put a tourniquet on a person, you must stay with that person and monitor that person. And that's just one of the rules. And so if you put a tourniquet on somebody, you're denying aid to somebody else. And that's where that triage skill that Sue was talking about, Sue Me is talking about, you've got to make that determination. You've got to say, is this life salvageable? And if it is, am I willing to sacrifice possibly 33 others in order to save this one? Or should I go take care and triage everybody else and then come back to this one? Maybe direct pressure until I can come back and put a tourniquet on him. But, we've got to take care of as many as we can. So this is the case where you want to do the greatest good, and that's going to be to the greatest number. Hello, KP Heathen. Welcome from Louisiana. Almost a brother there or sister. We share a common border. So Shenanigans is agreeing with me that, yeah, you just got to do what you got to do. And, family takes number one priority with me. You mess with me, my wife, my children, my grandchildren, I'm sorry. There's going to be Hades to pay for that. So they're talking about worrying about different things, and they're talking about how simple life has become as a result of losing electricity and all these other things, and your worries change. Like right now, I've got a court case coming up, and so I'm kind of worried about that. And I've got, and I am the person. I'm the good guy in this case. I'm not the bad guy. But there's things going on in my life that just overly complicate my life. But if I put my life in what Morgan's in right now, things would be so simple. I don't have to worry about this bill or that bill or planning or anything else. You're just kind of living a simple existence and making it last from day to day, just surviving. So your priorities change. And so the way that the discussion happens is, Dalton is talking with Kay, and Dalton nods and says, true, but the things to worry here today are a little more severe. They can actually kill you. Missing a mortgage payment here in this new environment won't kill you. No, Dalton replied as he scooped another spoonful of soup. But these issues are real. Unlike the other bullshit we used to sweat over, these things make you feel alive. They keep you closer to your true self. Nothing makes you feel more alive than being close to death. Maybe, but I'd like it better if we weren't so close to death. A little distance would be better. And Dalton nodded and said, yes, distance from death breeds complacency. And living on the edge keeps you on your toes. And so isn't that the truth? That's that circle that I've talked about in a couple of my other videos, that strong men create good times create weak men create hard times, and hard times create strong men. And we're in that period now to where the hard men, the generation before me, the greatest generation, World War II, Korea, and they produced me. And so we've got this easy lifestyle going on. And without it, all of a sudden, we're going to have hell. And I think more people are going to die if we have a depression and food shortage this time than we did during the Great Depression of the 30s. And the reason is because those people were closer to the earth. They knew more about how to produce their own food, whether it be a garden, whether it be scavenging, whether it be hunting, fishing, whatever. They knew how to acquire food. They knew how to live without electricity because they didn't have it yet. The Rural Electrification Act didn't happen until 1933. So, even up until after World War II, the vast majority of rural America did not have electricity. So they were used to not having these things. We aren't. We're used to having air conditioner set at 74 on a 104-degree day. We're used to refrigerators and freezers. We're used to being able to drive to the store any time of day and get whatever you want. I was talking to a friend who just came back from Germany, and they said that things have changed now that Germany's unified. And we used to have in Germany that all the stores were closed on Sundays. And then on Saturdays, it was only a half day. So they were open from 8 to 1, 3 Saturdays a month. And then they had what they called Lange Samstag, or Long Saturday, where they were open from 8 to 5. And so that was considered an extreme advantage, having the stores open all day on Saturday once a month. So, for us here in the U.S., we're used to having HEB grocery store or Publix or whatever open 24 hours a day. If you need it, go get it. We're used to having gas pumps available to us 24 hours a day. When we lose that, that's when people are going to begin to die. And that's one of the things I think we've got to get ourselves mentally adjusted to, is we're not going to have all the conveniences that we have now. And that's what Dalton's talking about in this book. So let me get down here. Triage is something you do not forget. Does not make the decisions any easier. Okay, so what I would like for you to do, and I'll see if I can't find a good link for you. CERT, I believe there's still some pages up on CERT, but you can go to CERT Triage. I know for certain that if you do Amazon, they have a CERT Triage marking kit. So the 5 different colors of tags that you can put on a person as you're doing your triage. If you would kind of read those tags, and you can kind of identify, the 5 categories of people that you're going to be looking into, and you're going to assigning a code to each of the 5 categories. Now, one of the categories is deceased. That's black, so that's easy. Just throw a black card down on them. But then you got the other 4 that you're going to divide people up into, and how you do that. The assessments behind it. There is a science to it, but I'm going to say it's more art than science. So that's a very honest truth. Great comment. Thank you, Little Lone Prepper. Yes, and whether that be intestinal worms, diseases, whether they've been exposed to, whether they have dysentery, cholera, typhus, typhoid, all those diseases that are going to come from having unclean water, exposure to raw sewage, even tuberculosis. I mean, the number of cases of TB that are coming across the border right now is just unbelievable. We don't have the medical stopping power at the border like we used to have. Just unbelievable. Dragon Slayer, hello and welcome. Let me see who else. I'm about ready to sneeze. Forgive me. Greengrass Grows, welcome. Good to see you. That would be so easy if we did live like the Amish. And the one thing I admire most about them is their sense of community. So the Amish and the Mormons both have a very, very close community spirit, and it's almost like a family. I think that's what Jesus intended us to be, is more like a family of people working together to accomplish common goals. Raising a barn in the Amish community, the way that the LDS Church, the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, the way they work together, they tithe, and then if you go to the preparedness store, it's right there with the bishop's warehouse. So they're buying things. And so if you're destitute in the Mormon church and you have been giving to the church in the past, you get to go pick from there. You can get toothpaste and soap and food and everything else. They take care of each other. And that's the way we are meant to be. We're meant to be small tribes of people working together. Real great. Here at the church, we probably got, I'm going to say 4,000 members in the church, but there's a core group of maybe 100 of us that we always see at everything, all the events. We're always there. And it seems as if we're all older people too. But you get to know their names. So the same ones who are in the St. Vincent de Paul with me are the same ones who take all the different classes that are being offered at the church and are at all the different special events. And then when you have a social event, we're all there. And so you kind of get these core groups of people, and that's how life is meant to be, is common people working together, sharing experiences and sharing success and building each other up and helping each other. And that's what we have with this community here in the chat, because you guys add such fantastic ideas and comments. And that's what we're doing, is we are sharing with each other to build each other up and help each other survive. And that's what I love most about this. Let me see here. Yeah, when I was doing some union avoidance work in Reading, Pennsylvania, we stayed at the Sheraton, and we had a Longhorn Steakhouse, and we also had what was it? Red Lobster. right out in front of the hotel, and the Amish would come in, probably once every 2 weeks or so, and they don't eat together. So the men would go to the steakhouse, and the women would go to the Red Lobster, and that was kind of interesting. Then they get back in their buggies and go back home. It was really interesting. Let me see here. Dragon Slayer. I've just heard Biden administration, FDA has just released a DNA altered mosquito that is giving people malaria in Texas and Florida. The world is falling apart. It's just unbelievable. We had a Supreme Court decision today that says you can't make decisions based on race. So since the president said, if you elect me, I will put a black female on the Supreme Court, does that mean that was an unconstitutional appointment because he said that he would choose solely by gender and race? And that's what he did? It's a good question we can ask. We have a couple here. We have some Mennonites here, and gosh, they are great bakers, unbelievable bakers. And so they will set up at our farmers market and sell baked goods, and just love them. Got to get to know them. I'm trying to learn how to do some Dutch oven cooking from them, and but just they are great people. No, I had not heard about the mosquitoes. I saw something about the mosquitoes. I was going to go back and read it, but I'm not up to date on it. So no, thank you for making me aware of that and reminding me I need to go back and do it. So is St. Vincent de Paul only for Catholics? No. As a matter of fact, my wife is a member, and we have a couple other people who have non-Catholic spouses who are members. And so we all work together. The whole thing is we just want to emulate what St. Vincent de Paul did. And so he's the saint. Later, 100 years later, Frederick Ozanam is the one who really started what we call the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And so that's helping the poor. So you don't have to be Catholic to be helped by St. Vincent de Paul. We help anybody and everybody, and because that's what they did. That's what Jesus tells us to do, and that's what St. Vincent de Paul did on the streets of Paris. He didn't ask your religion. He didn't ask you to come to church. He just, if you needed food, he gave you food. If you needed a blanket, he bought you a blanket. And so that's what we do. We just help you how we can. Because remember, James 2, verses 14 through 26 says, what doth it profit, my brother, if a man is naked, destitute, in need of food and clothing, and you give not him those things which are needed? You say unto him, depart, my brother, be filled with the Spirit, go in peace. Notwithstanding, you give him those things which are needed. And so it doesn't profit anything. So you can't preach the word if you don't satisfy the body. So we've got to get, and then St. Francis of Assisi reminds us that sometimes when we are interacting with people, we are the only Bible that they're going to read. How many of you have been told, Christians shouldn't do that or whatever, and they're judging you? You become what they're judging Christianity as or not as or whatever. And that's, St. Francis of Assisi told us that 500 years ago, that's what people do. They are making their decision on what Christianity is by our actions and not necessarily by our words. So that's what St. Vincent de Paul told us to do. Go out there and give, and help wherever you can. So that's kind of what we do. So let me see. Yes, and I've got a sourdough starter. I just haven't started it yet because knowing me, I wouldn't keep it up unless I have to. So I'm not going to start the starter until I get down to about, maybe a couple loaves of bread worth of yeast left. But I'm going to save some of that yeast to start the sourdough. Okay, let's get back. This is that instance where that guy has been on fire in the MRAP. And so Doc looks at Dalton and says, you just gunned him down. He says, are you going to effing shoot me if I'm wounded? And Mike spat at Dalton. And Dalton looked at him in the eye, and then at each man in turn in the MRAP and said, if you're really effed up, yes, I will. and I hope you will do the same for me. Our resources are extremely limited. There's only so much we can offer. If that was me back on the road, I'd pray that one of you shoot me. Put me out of that kind of pain quickly and not let me die a slow, lingering, miserable death. Everybody was silent for a while. Doc was the one to speak up. He's right. I didn't see him, but if he was burned that bad, there's nothing we could have done. And so Dalton then responds and says, "You think I liked it? You think I wanted to do it? But in this world, there are no medevacs coming. There is no higher level of care." And so I think that's, there's some food for thought in here. What are we going to do? And we've got two cases here. Number one, we've got a case of an extremely egregious injury, the burning person. And in another one, we've got an extremely egregious disease, an infestation of worms and parasites. And what are we going to do when we come across people like that who we just can't help, and we realize that there's no way we're going to get any kind of help for them? And so I think that's where we need to start toughening our minds and say, what are we going to do in those kinds of situations? Here's the bad thing. What if it happens to somebody you really, really love? I have been put in that situation twice. Both of my parents. My dad had a really bad infection, peritonitis, and basically it fried his body. And he was 88 at the time, and they just could not get the heat down for his body trying to fight the infection, and so he had a massive heart attack. They were able to keep him alive on a heart-lung machine, and this was at 2:00 in the morning. And they called me from the ICU and said, "Hey, your dad just had a massive heart attack. We'd like to talk to you. Come in." So I went in. My sister went in. And they said, here's what happened. He was gone. He was not breathing. He did not have a heartbeat for 8 minutes. The chances are that there is no brain left. There is brain activity, but that's low-level brain activity, and there's not much left. And it's, what do you want to do? And so my sister and I both made the decision to pull him off of life support, and that was a very difficult decision, but I think we made the right decision. And then couple years after that, my mother, as a matter of fact, Dad would be 100 years old on the 4th of July. He was born July 4th, 1923. And then same thing with my mom. My mom broke her hip. She went in for hip surgery. She was 93 when she went in for surgery, never recovered from the anesthesia. And so, she was in the hospital, and just her body gave out. She just totally gave up. And my sister and I were there with her at the same time, taking care of her and holding her hand when she passed. So, we didn't take any active steps, and we didn't take any passive steps. We were just there to support. And, both of those were tough. I still have those dreams, and I still say those prayers, Mom and Dad, forgive me for some of the stuff I did, for so long, because as I became a parent, I realized I saw in my child what I was and how I behaved for my parents. And then my daughter is now seeing that same thing. The quote trauma I caused her is happening. She's doing the same thing with her children, and that's just the cycle of life. That's how it goes. And unfortunately, sometimes we realize our part in that too late, and it's too late to apologize. So fraud vitiates everything. Good to know in this current admin. Yeah. In my humble opinion, the state of Utah will fare well during a SHTF. Yes, the yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite channels, Provident Preppers, they are Mormon. They are a Mormon family, and they will let you know that. And when I was in corporate America, and I was a training director and HR director, I was certified in everything that the Franklin Covey Institute had, and I was also certified in everything that the Covey Institute had, and then the Franklin Institute, and then the two of them merged. And every time I went for a certification in Salt Lake City, They put me up in that hotel right there off of Mormon Square, and then we would eat in the Santa Fe building where the all the records, genealogy records, are kept down in the basement, and the restaurant up top. You're actually staring right into the face of the angel Moroni on the temple as you're sitting there eating. So you're probably 100 feet away from the angel Moroni who's staring you in the eyes as you're eating, and that's the symbol of the Mormon Church. And they would try to convert me every time I went there. It was great. We could have some really good theological discussions, but they never converted me. Even their church. I don't know if you know this or not, but do you know that there's nothing metal in the church? That it's all what do you call it? Dowels holding it together, pegs holding it all together. And the church is designed in such a way that it can be dismantled in a very short period of time. I think it's 1 or 2 days, and totally moved and re-erected within 1 or 2 days. So they built it so that was a bug out church. Just unbelievable. I mean, if you study what and if you get a chance, I'll put a link. Come back and see the comments here. I will give you a link where you can get a free copy of the Mormon Survival Guide, and it's probably 400 pages long. Just fantastic information, just phenomenal information. And I'll put that in the show notes, so you'll have that. Yes, it's not. I'm glad I survived mine. Just anyhow. I still use basically the Franklin Planner. So, as a matter of fact, and I'm a member of the Alliance of Ministries here in our town. So all the different religions get together once a month to see what we can do to help the community at large. And the head of it, who is the chaplain at one of the universities, he uses a Franklin Planner too. So we kind of talk about that a little bit. Yes, absolutely. And you have to respect them. If you have a Mormon friend, just sitting down and talking to them, they can teach you so much. It is pitiful. Number one, the sense of community, the sense of belonging, the sense of integrativeness, if you will. And then number two, I mean, they're the ones who perfected freeze drying of foods and long term storage. And so, anytime you can go to an LDS Provident Living Center, and I'll put a link to where you can find those in the show notes tomorrow. Go and get their freeze dried foods. As a matter of fact, this is my inventory list of what I have from the LDS Provident Living Center. So, this is what they have. And I've been doing it with them for so long. For example, right here, I had to write in refried beans. They no longer have the refried beans available. I have 21 number 10 cans of instant refried beans in LDS number 10 cans. So, I mean, they're the ones, and before they started doing it for the church, they had another company called Rainy Day Foods. And Rainy Day Foods has some of the best varieties out there. They have a couple soup mixes that are just phenomenal. So, yes, anything that you can learn from anybody who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, study it, because they are the penultimate preppers in our society, and I give them the ultimate respect. So let me see. They also have the best language school because they send their missionaries to language school before they go overseas. And so the guy who was trying to convert me and was my mentor at the Covey Institute, they sent him to 6 months of Spanish immersion. And I mean, you would never know he was a gringo. He just does that. And sue me, they say that you can print it out for yourself, but you cannot sell it. And if you sell it, you cannot. I mean, you can sell it, you can print it out and sell it, but only to recover the cost of the printing. You cannot. The agreement you make with them when you print it is you cannot sell it for a profit. That's one of the agreements that they have. ABC Patriot. I will have to check into that. I have never heard of them. Let me write that down. I know there's an ABC soup mix with Rainy Day Foods, but I haven't heard of ABC. Where is it? Beehive Foods. Don't know anything about them, but I guarantee you by next week I will. By the next time we get together. Okay, so that's it. We are at the end of the hour. Anything that y'all want to do as far as any questions or anything else? I'm actually going a little bit over my time. I'll have to pay for this because we're at 1 hour and 5 minutes tonight, and I've really used up all my time this month for the free program. But gosh, thank you all for being here. 19 people in the chat. I don't know how many likes we have, but if you would hit that like button, if you would hit the subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. And once again, I want to kind of add an extra verse here. I want to talk about Joshua. I think that's another one of those T-shirts I just got to have, and that's Joshua 1, or is it Joshua 7? Joshua 1, yeah, Joshua 1, verse. Let me get my glasses. Verse 9. Yeah, Joshua 1, verse 9. I command you. And this is the New American Translation, okay? So I command you, be strong and steadfast. Do not fear, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So now we can go to Numbers back here. And, well, you should probably guess that as I read, this is my Bible. You can see all the tabs in it. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. So remember, do me a favor. We are family. Okay. Thank you so much for coming here to be part of this family. Thank you for the information you share, the value you add to the comments, because I don't know everything. And like this, look into Beehive Foods. Great. I will do that. Thank you for the fantastic comments. Thank you for being here. Remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. We're going to help each other through this. Be kind, polite, and respectful to each other because togetherness is the key, and we will do this together. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. And don't forget to mark your calendars for July 24th, Monday night at 7 p.m., not 8 p.m. So we're doing it an hour earlier. We are going to have Franklin Horton on. Get one or two of his books now. Send me emails with questions you would like to ask him as an author when he comes on the 24th. Take care, everybody. God bless you. Bye-bye.